Hi, I'm Ryan, 25 years old. While heating leftover pizza in my flat, my phone rang with an unrecognized number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but a gut feeling made me answer. It was Marissa, Aaron's mom on the line. Startled, I asked about her well-being, apologizing for any inconvenience. She didn't call unless something was amiss. Odd indeed. There's some creature in the basement, she said, sounding worried. It's causing a ruckus, and I don't know how to handle it. Aaron told me you're skilled at dealing with such situations. My mind briefly wondered if I had been summoned for pest control duties. A creature? I confirmed, thinking it was probably a raccoon. She sounded exasperated as she confessed that she couldn't reach animal control due to their delayed response. Seemingly on the verge of panic, she requested my help immediately. After a brief pause, I picked up my keys and agreed to help. Upon arrival at their house, Marissa was already outside, tense, pacing back and forth near the porch with her arms crossed. Her hair was gathered loosely in a ponytail, and she was dressed casually in an oversized sweatshirt, leggings, and running shoes, giving the impression of having begun some casual activity prior to our encounter. Relieved upon seeing me, she half laughed and said, "Thank God." I assured her, "No problem," exiting the car. Inquiring about a flashlight, she offered gloves as well. Leading me indoors, we made our way down the hallway to the basement door. A low, scratching thump echoed within, accompanied by movements near the distant wall. She provided a headlamp and thick leather gloves, hinting at past experiences. With wide eyes, she cautioned, "Don't get rabies?" I reassured her with a smile, promising to do my best as I descended carefully, heart racing slightly more than anticipated. Dear friends, please help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. In a span of some tranquil searching and subtle persuasion, I identified the raccoon hiding behind an ancient cupboard. I successfully opened the window and gently guided it towards the exit using a broomstick, watching as it hastily departed with apparent urgency. Upon my return upstairs, she handed me a glass of lemonade, saying, "You're a godsend." We conversed on the rear porch as I savored the drink. The atmosphere was serene apart from a few birds and distant barks echoing from down the street. She appeared to unwind in her chair now that the disturbance had subsided, the house restored to its calm. She mentioned Aaron was away for the weekend on a ski vacation with his girlfriend, and that she'd been attempting to clear out the basement, only to encounter an uninvited guest instead. I kept our conversation brief beyond that. She exhibited a witty sense of humor, spoke animatedly, shared tales of her college volleyball days. That day concluded with mere talk and lemonade, yet something lingered. Subsequently, she would wave whenever I approached. At times, while waiting for Aaron at his residence, she'd request my aid in retrieving items from the attic, unsticking windows, or lifting heavy objects she couldn't reach. At first, it seemed like casual assistance, but in retrospect, it was as if something was gradually stirring in both of us. It began subtly and incrementally. Aaron would be engrossed upstairs with his headset on, while I tended to her in the kitchen, replacing a light bulb. Occasionally, she'd summon me for help with a cabinet door in the laundry room, as Aaron played music loudly behind a closed door. She always insisted on feeding me afterwards, offering sandwiches, pasta, grilled fish, stating it was the minimal courtesy she could extend. I gathered details about her at a gradual pace. She had an uncanny ability to reveal the right amount without appearing overly forthcoming. She disclosed that Aaron's father had passed away some years back, causing difficulties for a while afterwards. She spoke of working longer hours to distract herself from dwelling on things. She discussed her daughter Melanie, who had recently completed grad school and relocated to the eastern seaboard. About her father, who was skilled in classical guitar, but lost much of his memory due to Alzheimer's. About the shoulder pain she experienced following a volleyball tournament in Spain, which worsened when it rained. I simply listened. On one particular afternoon, I was assisting her in transplanting lavender near the side fence. The soil was dry and we were both on our hands and knees, our hands soiled. She leaned over to clear hair from her face, leaving a trail of dirt across her cheek. I chuckled and reflexively reached out to clean it off with my thumb. She momentarily paused. Our gazes met, and then she smiled. Small, tentative, genuine. That was the initial time I observed it. The change. The instant the space between us grew dense with something beyond merely friendly gestures and shared dinnerware. Later that day, as I prepared to depart, she stood by the sliding glass door and said, "Ryan, you've been truly kind to me." I nonchalantly shrugged. It's insignificant. It isn't insignificant. She didn't utter another word, and neither did I. But that night I couldn't rest. I kept pondering the instant our hands touched, when we both grabbed for the same trowel. The echo of her laughter that lingered after I shared the humorous anecdote about Erin falling asleep during an exam. The way she looked at me as if she shouldn't but couldn't help it. From that day forward, we both sensed a shift, yet we didn't verbalize it. Not just yet, it felt like standing on the precipice with toes hovering over the abyss, waiting to see if the other person would take the leap first. And neither of us had the ability to fly. On a Thursday evening, I lingered past my usual time. Erin had gone out for a friend's bar crawl or trivia night, and prior, I assisted Marissa in shifting boxes from the attic. Nothing significant, merely decorative items, books, some bins labeled as Melanie's belongings. We worked together for approximately an hour, passing items down the slim pull-down ladder while dust danced in the slanted sunlight filtering through the tiny attic window. Once done, she served us wine. We sat on the living room floor, our backs against the couch, chuckling over a box that had exploded, scattering old Halloween costumes. I displayed a witch's hat and put it on. She laughed heartily, even snorted before feigning shock. It felt effortless, almost too easy. At some stage, the laughter transitioned into hushed discussions about music, regrets, how life often veers from anticipated paths. I shared that I scarcely knew my mother. She passed away when I was 6. She mentioned Erin's father used to be quite distinct, originally spent more time at home, previously gazed at her as if she held significance. People can stray, she whispered softly. At times, the gap between individuals grows so wide, it becomes unfixable without notice. I glanced at her then. Her wine glass swayed loosely in her grip, almost forgotten. She had crossed her legs underneath herself, and the soft lamplight illuminated the gold threads in her hair. And then she looked back at me. The glance didn't linger, but it didn't need to. I moved closer cautiously, waiting for a warning sign to appear. A signal to halt. It never came. Our lips met tenderly. Then again, for longer stretches. Her hand ascended to my cheek, tracing the contours of my jawline as if committing them to memory. My glass slid gently onto the carpet beside us. Ignored, there was no rush. Instead, an unvoiced barrier dissolving. She withdrew her gaze first, gasping slightly. I know this is hazardous, but neither of us retreated. That night, I didn't return home until past midnight. We did not make love that night. Not yet. However, something changed. A fissure appeared, unaddressed. Days following, an understated tension filled the space, even in silence. I continued to visit, still offering assistance. Yet the atmosphere shifted subtly. She donned gentler attire, her fragrance clung longer upon our encounters, and when we parted, her touch lingered momentarily on my wrist. A boundary was surpassed a week henceforth, not haphazardly, not guilt-ridden. It seemed in that instant to be something we both had craved for quite some time. However, as with all precious ill-gotten items, it didn't arrive without its price. The nights following, after the line was well and truly transgressed, things didn't deteriorate as I anticipated. Instead of a tempest of guilt or an awkward rift, we slid effortlessly into a rhythm that felt instinctive. Perilous, yet instinctive. Our words regarding the matter were scant. Yet the way her hand sought mine under the table, the softening of her smile whenever Aaron wasn't present, spoke volumes. Marissa sometimes left the back door unlocked for my visits when it was peaceful. She mentioned this casually, but we both understood the significance. Her home took on a different atmosphere after that, with dimmer lights and constant soft music playing. She began wearing loose-fitting robes and offered a kitchen smile whenever I arrived, as if our encounters were routine. We didn't discuss the future or express love verbally. It wasn't necessary. Our connection was silent, mature, and subtly forged through long pauses and gentle exchanges in rooms that weren't meant for such intimacy. At times, we simply lay in bed, facing different directions, yet still touching. She reminisced about her 20s, sharing stories of her aspiration to be a photojournalist, reflecting on how life had taken unexpected turns. No one truly warns you about the change when people cease viewing you as an individual and instead focus on the positions you hold: mother, employee, housekeeper. I shared secrets I hadn't spoken aloud in years, stories of my father's silence during childhood, feelings of waiting to be someone worthy of notice. She stretched her hand across the sheets, combing her fingers through my hair. "You already are," she said, as if it were the most natural truth. The most challenging aspect wasn't our actions, but how effortlessly they became. I would sneak in during early mornings when Aaron was out jogging or still asleep. Occasionally, I'd park a few streets away, just in case. She'd meet me in the corridor, hair still wet from the shower wrapped tight. We seldom spoke. Our movements simply meshed, as if we had done this countless times before. And perhaps that was what frightened us both, the realization that eventually reality would catch up. Aaron began spending more time at home. His internship ended, and since then, he's been present daily, altering the atmosphere drastically. My room remained accessible, but I ceased entering it. We became cautious, reducing visits, avoiding prolonged interactions, increasing tension, not a pleasant kind. It felt like dwelling under a leaky roof, anxiously waiting for the next drip to expose me. One afternoon, I spotted Aaron outside clearing the garage. Shirtless, with headphones on, he bore an uncanny resemblance to his mother, a sharp jawline and the same eyes. He waved, and I returned the gesture. That night, Marissa didn't phone, and the following evening she didn't answer. The silence deepened. Eventually, she messaged me, a single sentence: "He won't return to school for the next semester." I remained silent, unsure of what words could be said. We both understood that our precarious situation had shifted. Before, we inhabited a space teetering on the brink of consequence. But now, Aaron was always within reach. Every door squeaked louder. Every shadow seemed menacing. Yet, we couldn't break free. Not yet. The following encounter with her was brief and hurried. In a fleeting moment when Aaron was grocery shopping, a small opening presented itself. She hurriedly ushered me indoors, as if the very walls could overhear. Our conversation was sparse. It wasn't necessary. Her kiss was urgent, not romantic, but filled with desperation. It seemed she needed to affirm that what had transpired was genuine, that it actually occurred. Post-embrace, we found ourselves in the hallway, our backs against the wall, inhaling deeply from the sink. "I despise this," she murmured. "This secrecy, this anticipation, I understand. She leaned her head on my shoulder. We must tread carefully, but caution would not suffice. 2 weeks later, we narrowly avoided detection. I had arrived to assist Erin in replacing a ceiling light in the laundry room, a task she claimed would be quick. Erin stated that she was going to fetch something from the hardware store and wouldn't return for a while. We believed we had ample time. I was on the ladder with screwdriver in hand, partially distracted when she gasped. Through the front window, she had spotted his car pulling into the driveway. He had returned early. There was no time to spare. I hurriedly descended, wiped my hands on a cloth, and swiftly exited through the rear door, my heart pounding. I ran alongside the house and hid behind a row of hedges as Erin emerged from the car. He didn't notice me. He merely whistled, carrying a bag of soil and humming, as if it were an ordinary sunny afternoon. As though nothing had changed, as if his mother hadn't kissed another man mere minutes ago. I stayed hidden until he was fully indoors, then I departed quickly, nervously. That evening, Marissa phoned. Her voice trembled. I thought he'd be away till 5. I understand. It's fine. But it wasn't. We both sensed the change, the fear sneaking in where the warmth once resided. She began to withdraw. Not all at once, but gradually, cautiously. Her messages grew shorter. Her voice on the phone lost its tender tone. The tranquil mornings vanished. The affectionate greetings upon my arrival ceased. She didn't express the words, but I could feel them growing between us. This pattern can't continue. The last instance of seeing her, I truly perceived her. She gave me a jar of local market honey, and her fingers touched mine as she did so. However, it wasn't suggestive. It felt like a subdued conclusion. Following the close call, everything became slower, not in a dramatic movie-like fashion, but just a peaceful unwinding. Our daily texts ceased, and my visits only occurred when Erin was present. Even then, they seemed artificial, slimmer, lighter, as if we were feigning that event never took place. The key under the mat vanished, though I wouldn't have used it in any case. She stopped initiating contact first, and when I did, her responses became sluggish. Friendly, yes, but detached. I didn't push her. On certain afternoons, I'd see her on the porch with Erin, bringing in groceries or watering herbs. She'd wave, I'd return the gesture. That was it, and perhaps that's all it was ever meant to be. The most painful aspect wasn't losing the moments, or the kisses, or the mornings. It was the realization that those were just moments. Previously, she'd gaze at me as though I was the only person in the room truly perceiving her. Not merely Erin's mother or a composed individual, but authentic Marissa, radiant, humorous, yet frayed. For a span, I was the one privileged to witness this side of her. Now, I was simply Ryan, Erin's friend, the guy who had assisted with the raccoon. There were no climactic partings, no heartfelt declarations. Only silence marked our separation. Time moved on. A few weeks later at the supermarket, I crossed paths with them once more. Erin was steering the cart while Marissa laughed, her head tilting familiarly in response to something he said. She acknowledged my presence with a polite nod, and I returned the gesture. That was all. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, pondering over how tranquil departures leave the loudest echoes. Marissa never inquired if I yearned for her. I never probed if she thought of me. Such queries were beyond our means to answer. At times during the night, memories of her gently uttering my name resurface. Her casual touch on my back, void of any specific trigger, would linger. I ponder if those instances ever cross her mind. Yet, I refrain from inquiring. Life continued its pace. She moved on with Erin, more visible and involved. The house seemed to resume its regular rhythm. Contentment radiated from her, even joy. I ceased my attempts at interpretation. As for me, I took on additional hours at the bookstore, embarked on aimless weekend trips, grew my hair longer. I made a resolution to depart the city next year. Our conversations have ceased. Occasionally, I notice her residence and see her engrossed in reading by the window. Other times, she's not there. However, when our eyes meet fleetingly through the window, her subtle smile confirms that she too recollects those moments. Somehow, this shared remembrance suffices.